because it opens you up to issues related to incomplete data and incorrect collections. And those are, so what should be done with a truck driver's cell phone after a motor carrier accident occurs? Well, as we can imagine, for those who have not been in one, and I'm sure is a reality for those who have, experiencing a motor carrier accident can be a very scary or potentially traumatic event. And after these events occur, it's common to collect and preserve different forms of evidence like photos of the accident itself, witness statements, alcohol and drug testing, different electronic logs, and the data coming from the electronic control modules, right? The data that's in the midst of this chaos, the commonly understood data, that is. However, mobile phone evidence is often overlooked. And why is this the case? Well, first, I'm going to explain the two main reasons cell phone evidence is often overlooked in motor carrier accident cases. Then we're going to explore some of the best practices in digital forensics to lay a foundation, so I can then tell you exactly what you need to do, exactly how you should handle your driver's cell phone following a trucking accident, whether you're the plaintiff or the defense. So first, mobile phone evidence is often overlooked because there's a misunderstanding of what you can determine, the evidence, the digital evidence contained on the physical cell phone itself, and what can be ascertained from call detail records. So first, what is a call detail record? A call detail record is like a super phone bill you get via subpoena or through discovery from a cellular provider, okay? These contain information about when a call occurred, so the sending and receiving of calls, some routing information by the phone company. They contain text messages, SMS and MMS message, short message service, and multimedia service messages, so only messages that are transmitted via the cellular system, and data records or data transmissions from a mobile phone. Now, it's important to note that if there is a messaging application that's using iMessage, Facebook Messenger, Instagram, Kick Messenger, or any other messaging application, those transmit via data. You can't tell from a certain amount of data being sent or received if that was a user-generated activity or if that was an automated function of the cell phone. So in other words, if we're using these other applications instead of standard text messages like SMS or MMS, they're not going to show up on a call detail report, okay? That has to be collected from the physical phone itself. I'm going to reiterate this just because it is a serious issue in digital forensics world, because there are experts who want to say you can tell what a user is doing at a particular time based upon data records and call detail reports. No, you cannot, okay? Data records are useful to show you if a phone is powered on or powered off. You cannot tell when you're looking at the data coming in and going out in a call detail record report about what that activity was. You can't tell if it was user-generated, automated, or anything else. It's not useful for anything other than showing that the phone was powered on or powered off. If you need to know what is actually happening on the phone with that data, what's happening at this time or another time, was it application usage, were they reading a message, were they watching a Netflix movie, you need to get an extraction and examination of the data from the cell phone itself. So an examination of that physical piece of hardware has to be done. If you're listening to this and you feel like I'm being alarmist, just understand that yes, plaintiff attorneys have been requesting call detail records for some time, but it's becoming more and more common for them to seek access to the actual mobile phone of the truck driver after the accident in nearly every case. Back in 2021, Joe Freed and Michael Goldberg, renowned plaintiff attorneys who specialize in trucking accident cases, wrote the following: "The use of cell phones is one of the biggest distractions for truck drivers. The best evidence of cell phone use is a download of the cell phone itself. Because it is impossible to crack a password-protected smartphone without the password, the driver must provide his password in order to access the contents of the cell phone. The driver refuses to give his password or suddenly cannot remember his password, then there's no reason to do anything with the cell phone itself other than to point out to the jury that the driver is most likely failing to remember his password because the contents of the cell phone are harmful to his defense of the case." Now, it's no doubt that Joe Freed and Michael Goldberg are the leading edge in many instances when it comes with dealing with technology in motor carrier accident cases from the plaintiff's perspective. But 2021, these years, from then to present, technology years are kind of like dog years. It's been a long time and there's been much advancement. And there certainly has been an ever increased interest in cell phone evidence in motor carrier accident cases from both sides. Now, there is one update I would give to Joe's comments here, and that is if that driver forgot their passcode, some labs, like the lab I'm with, can actually crack those passcodes and recover the data anyway. A link to that full article is in the description below. You see, he's correct. The internal storage of a cell phone is the most comprehensive source of data that can be used as evidence to determine what happened leading up to an accident. By analyzing the mobile phone's internal memory, internal storage, it is possible to determine the events that occurred at the time of a particular incident. This includes data coming from third-party messaging applications like we talked about earlier, social media, games, movies, music streaming services. Remember, all of these activities only create near useless data records in call detail report. If you want to know specifics down to the second and in between the second, we have to have a forensic extraction and analysis of the physical cell phone. And now to our second reason, and that there is simply a lack of understanding regarding the volatility and fragility of digital evidence, especially when it comes to cell phone evidence. Yes, it's true, with mobile phone forensics, we can retrieve a vast amount of data from a cell phone, including very old and deleted data, data that's been transferred from one phone to another. But in accident cases, the most critical information is usually the most recent data leading up to the accident. And unfortunately, that is the data that is often the most at risk. So yes, even years after an accident, it is possible to recover forensic artifacts showing application usage, messages being sent back and forth, and the rest in the moments leading up to an accident. But you're not going to have the best chance of that unless that phone is preserved immediately following the incident or as quickly as possible. So what do I mean when I say that mobile phone evidence is both volatile and fragile? Well, you see, it's volatile because it can be easily modified by mishandling the evidence, and it's fragile because that data can be destroyed if best practices are not followed when trying to collect data from a mobile phone. And there are even more issues than that. See, if a mobile phone is not handled properly in that collection phase, that first responder, even simply thumbing through the phone to look at different things, can change data intentionally or unintentionally, like marking a message that was unread as being read because you clicked on it, even though there was no indication before that the driver had actually done so. So that brings us to the best practices. When we're collecting data from a cell phone, there needs to be strict adherence to digital forensic best practices. These practices include, in short, secure seizure, so properly seizing that phone without compromising the contents, the actual data on the phone itself. We're going to come back to that in a moment, and I'm going to explain how you should do this following an accident. Then we have documentation, thoroughly documenting each step from seizing that phone to how you store it. Make sure we maintain clear chains of custody. That just ensures the reliability and admissibility of that evidence when we go to court, because gaps or mishandling can really weaken a case when you can't explain why you have that gap. Finally, we have expert handling, okay? Trained forensic specialists should be the ones who handle that phone when it's time to get data from it. Examining the phone, extracting data from the phone should be done by an expert to ensure that that data is protected and the analysis, what you're determining from that data, is accurate, okay? Experts should be able to identify changes that might have occurred, look at timestamps and patterns in that data, and data that needs to be recovered by hand that's otherwise going to go unnoticed. So in forensic collections, one of the principles inside of that is isolation, okay? The collection phase in digital forensics is to ensure that all the relevant electronic items are collected, and it's also to protect that digital evidence from contamination. And one way this is done is by isolating devices. First, isolating devices from their respective users until a forensic collection or acquisition of that data can be done. See, by removing that phone from the custodian themselves, the owner of that device, we are ensuring that that person cannot delete, create, or change data before a forensic collection or acquisition is performed, okay? We're also preventing the chance that that phone could be factory reset or the device wiped or anti-forensic tools run against it at some point, which can permanently destroy data and potentially change other information on a mobile device. So along with isolating that cell phone from the user, that mobile device should also be isolated from networks. By design, mobile phones are intended for communication. It's phone in the name, and they're continually sending and receiving data even when they're on the bedside bedside table charging overnight. So if that data transmission is occurring after an accident, new data coming in, new data coming out, new commands coming in, new commands coming out from that device, data can be lost, changed, or destroyed. So in digital forensics, that isolation of the device, of a mobile phone, is done by isolating it from cellular networks, Bluetooth, wireless networks, even infrared connections through Faraday technology, okay? And this is technology like a Faraday bag or cage that blocks out radio frequency and other waves from being able to access the phone. In other words, it blocks any signal the cell phone might pick up by isolating it from electric fields and radio frequencies. Well, a cell phone can also be isolated from networks by placing it into airplane mode with wireless network connectivity turned off. As you know, if you've flown recently, you can fly while having the wireless on, even though you're in airplane mode, so you connect to the Wi-Fi on a plane. We want to make sure Wi-Fi is off, phone's in airplane mode, and then power the phone off. And that's part of my recommendation of what you should do with a cell phone after an accident. So what should we do with a cell phone after an accident? Well, the best option is that you're going to buy the driver a new phone. You're then going to take the evidence cell phone, the cell phone they had when the accident occurred, place that into airplane mode, turn Wi-Fi off, and power the phone off. You're then going to send that cell phone to a forensic lab for secure retention and storage. It doesn't have to be analyzed. You don't have to spend the money to have a forensic examination and extraction performed yet. But then you know that phone is securely held at a forensic lab in controlled conditions for temperature and the rest. And that lab can also maintain chain of custody and the other necessary documentation. A lot of times the driver needs their phone in order to operate. Maybe this collision is one where there's a concern there could be litigation, but you just don't know. So you don't want to take that phone from the driver forever. And this leads to the next best option is that we buy the driver a new phone. We're then going to transfer the data from the evidence phone, the phone that was involved in the accident, to the new cell phone. Then that person can go about their way with all their data and the rest. That evidence cell phone is going to be placed into airplane mode with Wi-Fi powered off. And then that cell phone needs to be retained in a secure location. That could be at the attorney's office, at counsel's office. That could be with the safety manager for a trucking company. For the plaintiff side, that could be with your attorney, or simply you do that yourself. So in our descending best to least best options, we'll call this the good option. At the first available opportunity, I want you to send that cell phone to be extracted by a forensic expert, okay? You're gonna send the phone in, you're gonna have the data collected and extracted. That cell phone can then be sent back to the driver and they can go about their way. That gives us a perfect snapshot in time of all the data that can be recovered from that cell phone if the examination is done by a lab that has the right technology that can get everything, like a full file system extraction. And in most instances, this is sufficient in my experience. Once again, this should be done as quickly as possible following the accident, even if it has to be a few days following, simply because there is data that does expire that is potentially recoverable, and to protect yourself, the best option is just to have that phone acquired, extracted as soon as possible. And then our last best option, truly the potentially problematic option, is that the driver continues using the phone after the accident until there's a need for extraction. Usually that's pending litigation. If we've gotten to this point, then there are issues that can be raised by the opposing side regarding the data that's potentially lost and no longer recoverable given the time that the phone has been in use from the accident time until the time that the extraction is performed by a forensic expert. As we land this plane, I hope we see that cell phone evidence as both a sword and a shield. It can absolutely strengthen your case, providing data showing that the other driver was on the phone in the moments leading up to an accident. But even if there was evidence that your driver was certainly not on the phone, if that phone is mishandled, it can lead to serious consequences. Because it opens you up to issues related to incomplete data and incorrect collections. And those are the ability for another side to say, I was unable to perform an analysis of all the data and all these things could be potentially missing because that phone was not collected correctly or in a timely manner. So for legal professionals, insurers, and company representatives, you are well served by recognizing the delicate nature of this evidence and planning accordingly.